So I had a request come through: Mike Tyson at his prime versus David Tua at his prime. Who do I think would win? Now, on the face of it, that's an easy question. Mike Tyson is a guy I'd consider to be a top 10 heavyweight of all time. Very possibly, slightly better than that even. I know there's a bit of dispute as to who he actually beat, but I think the general consensus would be Mike would be top 15, if not top 10. Now, with regards to David Tua, yeah, he's a solid guy, very durable, great chin, good punching power, been in a lot of big fights, been in a lot of very entertaining fights. I don't see too many people listing him as an all-time great, certainly not in the conversations of top 10 heavyweights of all time. So, on the face of it, it's one that Mike Tyson would be an overwhelming favourite on. There's actually a few similarities between these guys. Both of them have got good chins. David Tua probably has the edge on chin. He's never been stopped, even though he fought on well past his best. They're both very big punchers. They're also both smaller men, specifically in terms of height for the heavyweight division. And there are times, if I've just had a glance at Lennox Lewis versus David Tua, there is time, the way they fight with that low stance, with the head movement, with the bob and weave before coming in, that they actually have similarities in terms of their fighting style. Now, whilst I would say that Mike Tyson is a better all-time great heavyweight than David Tua, stylistically it could be an entertaining and interesting match should these two guys have met at their peaks, because realistically, they're both inside fighters, they're both guys who, are very durable, very big punchers, and I think it could have been an absolute war. Having just rewatched the Lennox Lewis versus David Tua fight, I also had to look at the AK Ibebuachi fight with David Tua. It seems a near impossibility to knock this guy out. He's just so tough and so durable. So despite the fact that Mike at his best was a lethal puncher, I see this one going the distance. You need a hammer to knock David Tua out. The difficulty is, there are weaknesses to David Tua's game that aren't evident in Tyson's game. Now, David Tua has inaccuracy. He's been known to swing wildly and miss. He also is easy to outbox and to dominate from range. If you look at the Lennox Lewis fight, it's a very easy fight for Lewis in the end. He gives him a boxing lesson. In the AK Ibebuachi fight, AK really dominates that fight from range. I know some people have it close, but I personally think Tua won the fight. There's also a loss from a near-peak Tua to Chris Bird. This is a guy you can outbox. And I'm not saying that Mike Tyson brings that sort of range that a Lennox Lewis brings, and that sort of jab and movement that necessarily a Lennox Lewis brings. But what I do think is Mike's work is more eye-catching. I think he's slightly more athletic. I think his combinations are more sort of dynamic, more fierce than Tua's. I think these two guys would meet in the centre of the ring, and I think Mike would win the early rounds. I just think he's got more snap, more hand speed, more combinations, and he's more dynamic. I agree that Tyson probably wouldn't knock Tua out and that the fight would get dragged into the later rounds. Then I think it would be about how much Tyson had left. Whether Tua could drag him into deep water, having survived the early Tyson onslaughts. My theory, though, is whilst, David Tua is a very big puncher, he knocked out guys like Oleg Maskayev, he knocked out guys like Hasim Rahman, he's not got a track record of knocking out all-time great heavyweights. When he was fighting the likes of Lennox Lewis, and even lesser heavyweights like IK, like Chris Bird, as it so happens, he didn't end up getting the stoppage of these guys. So I think a peak Mike Tyson, all-time great heavyweight, all-time great power, all-time great athleticism, and a very, very, very decent chin. I see this one going the distance. I see Tua winning late rounds. I see Tua performing with credit, but I just don't think his work is as eye-catching and as dynamic as a peak Tyson. So based on that alone, I'm giving it to Tyson. I'm saying something like 9 rounds to 3. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks very much for watching as always.